And so the first thing you'll see is the precautionary principle. Now we, as an organisation, are great believers in the precautionary principle, as is the European Union, because it's enshrined within the Lisbon Treaty. And we think that this is particularly relevant to pesticides. So when an activity raises threats of harm to human health or the environment, as pesticides clearly do, precautionary measures should be taken, even if it's not completely clear what those effects might be. So I think that's relevant to pesticides. And it's enshrined in, as I said, the Lisbon Treaty and in the EU's thinking in general. And as a result of that, back in 2009, they adopted a thing called the EU Directive on the Sustainable Use of Pesticides, which is about how and where you use pesticides. It was a directive, so it was open to each individual member state to implement it as they saw fit, keeping within the spirit of the directive. And the spirit of the directive was this: it aims to achieve a sustainable use of pesticides in the EU by reducing the risk and impacts of pesticide use on human health and the environment, promoting the use of integrated pest management and of alternative approaches or techniques, such as non-chemical approaches to pesticides. And there was a series of articles, and one of the articles was this one. So ensure that the use of pesticides is minimised or prohibited in certain specific areas. One of them, there were 3 areas, but this is the one that is the most relevant today. So this is areas frequented by the general public or by vulnerable groups, such as public parks, gardens, sports and recreation grounds, school grounds, children's playgrounds, and in the close vicinity of healthcare facilities. So every member state had the opportunity to incorporate that within the new National Action Plan, which they also had to create as a result of the introduction of the Sustainable Use Directive. And the UK chose to ignore that particular bit. Go into the reasons why. Over coughing perhaps. But not everywhere ignored it. And so it was a really powerful drive. And that came into effect actually in 2012, after being adopted in 2009. So this is the effect it had in Belgium. So Flanders, Wallonia and Brussels. Basically they've all banned the use of most pesticides in most public spaces in those areas frequented by vulnerable groups, such as children. Germany. Use of pesticides on non-agricultural land is largely prohibited. They are also now looking at banning the entire use of glyphosate throughout Germany, even though they voted to support it. Denmark decided to introduce a progressive ban on pesticides in public spaces in 1998, leading to a blanket ban in 2006. That has changed slightly, but they're still trying to reduce the use of pesticides and stop the use of pesticides in public spaces. France, complete ban on the use of non-agricultural pesticides. Started in public parks and green spaces in January 2017. As of next year, the public will no longer be able to go to a shop and buy pesticides for use in their homes and gardens. They have a few derogations for uses such as cemeteries and airports for public health, but it's moving towards it. That's their stated ambition. And also in the Netherlands, we banned the use of pesticides on pavements in 2016. Green spaces followed in 2017. But even before Sustainable Use Directive, there was a movement and a belief in many parts of Europe that actually stopping the use of pesticides, stopping the exposure of citizens to pesticides, stopping the effect on biodiversity from pesticides was a good thing to do. And it was it's a political decision in many cases. So in Paris, the mayor decided that they wanted to go pesticide-free for the public good. And they did. Slightly different, the mayor of London can't do that, but the head of the council can do that if they so want. Now, the mayor was very good. Public engagement was a key factor in it. He said, well, you may see some more weeds popping up around trees and out of drains and this sort of thing, but the payoff is you're not being exposed to pesticides, and pesticides aren't getting in our water. This is what I want to do. They retrained the staff across Paris and implemented it. Ghent, pesticide-free for over 20 years. Again, the mayor supported it. You'll see a short message for him after this short message. And they do it fantastically. It's a big city. It's got all sorts of different areas. So you were talking about cobble areas. Well, Ghent's full of cobble streets, and they're managed beautifully. They've got shopping centres, they've got massive parks, and it's all managed without pesticides. Again, it was the mayor driving that. Mals is a small town in Italy, in the South Tyrol. It's gone pesticide-free. It's one of the major apple growing regions in the world, and they use pesticides all over the place, and the residents there decided they didn't want that anymore. So they held a public referendum overwhelming majority voted to stop the use of pesticides, actually not just on the streets, but also in the orchards surrounding the town. And the mayor of Mals came out and said supported it. He didn't get involved in the debate, the public wanted it. And he's commanded huge amounts of pressure from central government in Italy, regional government, to start using pesticides again. And he stood up and he said, you know what, my number one duty is to protect the health and well-being of my citizens, and I believe the best way to do that, or one of the best ways of doing that, is by stopping the use of pesticides. And it's gone ahead and they're developing. And we also have pledges from across Europe, very similar to our London Council of pledges. This is mayors and leaders of municipalities across Europe, which our European colleagues are doing, getting them to pledge to go pesticide-free. And it's part of the European Pesticide-Free Towns network that we're developing. And one of the things we want to do is share, I mean, today is very much about sharing information and experience, but you can see from Europe that in many instances, they're miles ahead of the game, or kilometres ahead of the game. And so what we want to do is bring some of that expertise over, share some of that expertise, because there's an awful lot, not just on the practicalities, but also on the political approach and the public engagement approach and all the various things that you need to go pesticide-free. So these are a few examples. So I went through Germany, used a variety of mechanical methods, tractor-mounted weed brushes, handheld weed brushes, a whole range of different things. Denmark, place in Denmark, Allerød, since 1996 banned the use of pesticides in all areas under its control. And they use the public education system and taught the public to accept a greater level of weediness. And maybe focused a bit more on not calling them weeds, but calling them native species or calling them wildflowers, and getting the public to accept it. But they've also engaged the public in going out and looking after their own little bit of green space, which is hugely important. Another place, Denmark, so stop the use of all pesticides on green spaces, roads and pathways. And they've adopted a rigorous hand weeding regimen and also used grazing animals to deal with the weeds, which is not appropriate everywhere. But it's another system. It's about sort of lateral thinking and how do you do these approaches. And there are lessons that we can learn and adopt here. So there is no silver bullet. There isn't one solution that's going to replace pesticides. It requires many different techniques in order to succeed, and in many cases it's site-specific, situation-dependent, whatever it happens to be. So you need to look at a range of different things. You're not just replacing one thing with another thing. You're not replacing glyphosate with hot foam. You need to look at it in a holistic way. It's very clear that the municipality or the council or political leaders need to be fully behind it. So they need to be supporting the parks officers, they need to be supporting the highways people, they need to give their political support to whatever is going on. And it's critical. So that's why it's great that so many councillors are here, because you can give that political support, likewise the GLA. But also equally, the support of the public is vital, and we have touched on that. And Josie mentioned, this was actually in the London Borough, talking about it, and I was speaking to someone, I said, well, we've left this big area, we've left it with wildflowers and stuff, but I'm getting loads and loads of complaints from the public saying it looks awful. I said, well, why don't you stick a sign saying we've done this for the bees? They stuck a sign in it, said we've done this for the bees, a little bit more eloquently than that. And then, spoke to some 2 weeks later, I've had 5 letters from the public saying, wow, brilliant, you're doing such great work, can you do more of it? So, speaking to the public is really, really important. And looking ahead, well, we've got threats from Brexit. We're not necessarily going to be led by the directive anymore. However, that said, we do have a national action plan, and it is undergoing a review and revision section, and we think that as part of the greener strategy, there will be actual reference to reducing and stopping the use of pesticides in public areas within the new version of our National Action Plan. There may well be further restrictions on actives, particularly I'm thinking glyphosate. Now, yes, it got reapproved for 5 years. That was a third of the time that it was expected to be reapproved for. There are serious concerns still about the use of glyphosate and whether it is a carcinogen or all the various other health effects. And in fact, there's a European Parliament committee looking expressly at the problems with the relicensing process. On the back of that, we've also got other EU countries already just taking it out of use. So Germany, France, Italy, Belgium, they're all getting rid of the use of glyphosate, and I think it's probably going to see the end of it. And I think in 5 years' time we're going to see the end of glyphosate. So, as Wesley pointed out, let's get ahead of the game. And I think even in the UK public are fairly anti, for whatever reason. So I think getting ahead of the game and realising that you're going to have fewer actives to deal with problems anyway is a good driver for going pesticide free. The normalisation of non-pesticide approaches, well, more you'll hear later about some of the wonderful techniques and machinery and etc. That we can use to deal with them without pesticides. There's only going to be more of them. It's going to be a growing thing. And as we normalise it, as more councils demand of their contractors that they want a pesticide-free opportunity, we're going to get more. We're going to start growing it. We are in the UK very much at the beginning. Very much at the beginning. So the more we do, the more we ask, the cheaper it will become, the more effective it will become, the more widespread it will become, and the more normal it will become. And there is this ongoing growing public concern about pesticides, and it's not going to go away. So doing right by the citizens of your boroughs is a key part of why you were elected or why you got involved in politics in the first place. So all of these things are drivers for what we can do, and they're all lessons that have been learned and taken on and seen in Europe already that we can learn from, and we hope that we'll be able to facilitate some of that exchange from Europe back specifically to London to help you on your path to pesticide free.